Hello everybody, good morning. Welcome to another Field Notes Friday that's not in a field. We are in the middle of a heat wave and it's borderline unbearable. Everybody is suffering, we're all irritated and fed up, and I talk about the horses as well. They're quite tired. We're doing a lot of forage walking, hosing down, misting, engaging with their minds, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And yeah, it's been a difficult week. It is apparently going to be changing in the next couple of days, and I absolutely can't wait. So, like I say, welcome to this week's Field Note Friday. If you are new to joining me in this moment, I go live around about this time to talk about what has come up within the week with myself, with my horses, with the environment. But like I said last week, we took a little shift because I'm sort of concentrating on the senses at the moment. They come up every day, every week anyway, all of the senses in their moments. So it's not so much of a deviation. But this week I concentrated on smell. And it was really funny. This morning when I was out feeding the boys, Charlie raised his head and did that clearing snort, which is a indication that he senses something and he wants to clear his nasal passages so that he can take in any smell that he can. Couldn't see anything, and again it was just a case of being aware of his awareness and understanding that he can smell something. He knows that there's something out there, and giving him a moment to take that in and share that with him. I went and stood by him. I looked in the direction that he was looked. He was very aware. He was very intense. So gave him that reassurance that I saw him, that I understood that there was something that was creating an imbalance in his emotions at that moment. Parker joined him, not in the snorting, but in the arousal. Champ ignored him. So it wasn't a group thing, so knowing it wasn't something too much to worry about, probably a cat more than anything, perhaps a fox. But it was really interesting that happened this morning, considering what we're talking about this week. I think the sense of smell is one of the most underrated senses that in our horses and in communication, and what we understand of it and what importance we put on it. We focus very much on the seeing, and we did seeing last week, and we focus also on touch because we as individuals are visual and we are physical, more than our other more subtle senses like smell and taste and hearing, for example. We see first and then we go into a physical reaction or response. Now, our sense of smell is acute and does drive some of our emotions, obviously, but in our horses it's massive. I think we don't understand just how sensitive their sense of smell is. We give that accolade to our dogs, but actually our horses have an equally as sensitive sense of smell. It's constantly influencing the choices that they make, that the emotions and balance of emotions, like I touched on earlier, and it's a key part of their safety, of them feeling safe. Because if they, like Charlie did this morning, do sense something through smell but can't see or feel, then they have to rely on that for their safety. And horses, as we know, are in that loop of am I safe constantly. So settle in and as I go through this, please share in the comments any stories you might have or any questions that you might have. So the first thing I want to touch on is the smell and behavior. Smell is often the very first way a horse takes in new information, even before sight. Their muzzle and the way that they use their sense of smell and use their muzzle for information is really acute. So you can see this in when they greet each other by muzzle to muzzle. That is very much their first point usually. Then there is a lot of sniffing around the flanks, and as you know, well, if you've been here and been following me for a while, if not, I will let you know now. The shoulder and the flank area of a horse, for me, is like their center of communication. It's their headquarters of communication. So them sniffing flank to flank isn't a surprise to me. Again, maybe that's something we'll get onto when I talk about touch, because the flank and the shoulder area is something that we tend to ignore. And they exchange breath. And within that breath is also smell. It's not, not saying they have bad breath. I love a soft exchange of breath from our horses. But there is a sense of smell within that. And it's a little bit like that's their sort of handshake. That's their short conversation to understand who's in front of them, how they're feeling, and are they going to be part of their safety environment. Within that sense of smell, they're able to read mood and health, familiarity, just from scent alone. And this is one of the reasons why I think that if we're going to skip the stage of allowing them to smell and go straight into the task, whatever that might be, haltering, whatever, which is usually the first thing, to be fair, it can feel rushed to them and unsafe. So, and it's minuscule, it's micro, but these are the things that matter to our horses. By allowing them that moment of connection through smell, the rest of the conversation will run smoothly. And you might not notice this because you might have a horse that has been very willing and easy, if you like, to do with. But I guarantee if you haven't been doing this and you slow it down and you add this into the conversation, I would hope that you would feel a slight from your horse, a slight relaxation, even if you think that they are in fact already relaxed. It's also really important when we're introducing a new herd member. That sense of smell drives them to put the horse into a place within the herd that might come in. They sense whether they are tense or anxious. And a lot of this comes through their manure. So for me, I do this, and I would recommend it to anybody. If you're going to be introducing a new horse, when I do it, I exchange happy poop. And what I mean by that is I watch and see that they poo in a relaxed moment. So the sense of that poo, the smell of that poo is going to be relaxed. And when we switch it over and they sniff that, they get the sense, the smell of a horse that is also relaxed and tension free in that moment. Doesn't resolve the squealing and maybe the stamping, but it does give them the idea that in the future, in the very near future, this horse will be settled within the herd. And that's all to do with smell. It's all to do with the sense of smell. And I've also seen this with objects. A horse might refuse to go near something like a rug or a pad or even a part of your grooming kit because the scent is unfamiliar, particularly if you've been using it on a horse that they don't have a great relationship with, or it is associated with a bad memory. But allowing them to smell it and process it and take their time often that tension melts away. And like I mentioned in the post the other day, when introducing Parker to the bareback pad for the very first time, allowing him to smell it, allowing him to sense the history of it, because that bareback pad's been on hundreds of horses. It's my go-to when I'm introducing saddling, or even reintroducing saddling, because it's soft and it will do no damage. And if they do drop and roll in it, it won't hurt them, and it won't get hurt either. Prior to introducing it to Parker, I placed it on Champ and Charlie, his little herd, his herd mates in his little herd. So he had a familiar smell. He knew what it was smelling, who it was smelling of. And amongst other things, I'm not saying that was the only reason, Parker has been started based on nature, horsemanship from nature. So this rewilding process, his rewilding principles. So it's a combination, obviously, of everything that I've brought to him, and that is just part of it. But the sense of smell for him in that moment allowed him to accept the bareback pad. And I have a video of his first, it's a series, we're on part 3 now, of him going through the process of saddling bareback at the moment. All the way through to cinching up. And it has had no consequence whatsoever. There's been no reaction, only curiosity, only interest, and only willingness and collaboration. The other thing I'd like to talk about again when we talk about the sense of smell is smell and safety. So, like I touched on earlier, smell is really deeply linked to memory in our horses, just like in us. If you've ever had a moment where a familiar smell comes past you and it takes you back to a moment, right? Good, bad, or indifferent. And it's the same with our horses. So even though it can have a negative impact, a particular scent can also trigger a positive response. And it's a good thing. It's something that we can work with. So let's say a horse is walking into a familiar space that you have, and an unfamiliar space, and they tense up. And it's not because they see anything or they have any association particularly physically, but what they are being taken back to is a smell that reminds them of an experience. It's an experiential moment that takes them back to a stressful event. But like I say, the good news is we can use this for connection. We can use this to our advantage. So by wearing something familiar, there's familiar scent, that has like the bareback pad, having a familiar scent of Charlie and Champ before presenting it to Parker, I was using it to my advantage to make this first experience good for him. So always let smell be part of that engagement. And again, as I mentioned, I've seen so many muzzles being patted away, either out of no time for it, that they're being a nuisance, or fear because they're coming close, wanting to use their muzzle, their sense of smell to understand a situation. And it's a real shame, because part of that engagement is connection, and part of that connection takes you through that curiosity and confidence and having a dialogue that you can progress with. So bring a familiar smelling object into a new space to anchor them is a good idea. If you think you're going to be taking them into a space that is going to trigger any tension, again, it might not even be experiential, it just might be a new space that is going to put them on threshold. By having some familiar smelling objects around them, or you being familiar in your smell, can actually help them through that moment. The other thing I wanted to touch on, which I also touched on in a post, is smell and play. Again, we do a lot of groundwork, we do a lot of playtime. Well, I do, and I hope you guys do, and enjoy our horses' movements and encourage play through movement. But smell can also be a brilliant way to stimulate their minds and strengthen that bond at the same time, because it is quiet to a degree and asks of you to be present, to be mindful, to understand what the horse is doing at any one time. And it's a problem solving moment, so that they engage their minds, so it's another part of their sensory connection. And because you're having to participate in it, it makes you part of that game. It makes you part of the problem solving with them. So I shared a game that I play. It doesn't work for all horses, I have to say, though, because not all horses are driven by problem solving. Champ is a mind horse. I always have horses loosely broken down into physical, mental and emotional categories. Loosely, because it is nuanced, incredibly nuanced. Charlie is a physical horse, so he likes to get on with things. Champ is mental. He loves problem solving, and it has been one of our really most happy moments playing the sock game, where I put socks around the round pen fence with one that has a treat in it, and he has to find the treat. And I did put a little cautionary note: be very careful, because if you have a mouthy horse or a young horse or a horse that is very curious with their mouths, you need to be sure that they're not going to pick the sock off the rail and eat it, because trying to get to the treat. So be cautious. Champ is very gentle. He will go up to the sock, he will pick the sock up and he will drop it. So I can be there to get the treat out and give it to him. So an alternative would be to put treats under plant pots or things that are not going to get inside their mouths, and they're not going to choke on them. So be really careful about that. But it's a really fun game, and it is a super bonding moment. And it's part of their curiosity, and what you're doing is engaging their natural investigative behavior through scent. If you think about how they forage for food naturally, they're looking, investigating, that plant's good, that plant's not. So you're engaging that part of their natural thought processes as well, which they don't often have to use. So stimulating that is also a really good thing. So the more that we can be aware of a horse's need to smell, whether that's people, objects, environment, whatever it is, the more we give them that opportunity, the more safety that they will be able to sense. It's like they have a sense of control in their own experience, if you like. So I would ask this: the next time, before you ask for anything, whether it be movement, a task, anything at all, offer something to smell, whether that is your hand, your sleeve, or the object that you're about to use, like I did with Parker and the bareback pad, and watch how they shift once they've logged in to that scent, to that request through scent, and see what response you get, because that would be really interesting. So that is smell in the moment, whether that be social connection, herd introductions, safety or play. We've covered all of those. If there's any other moment that smell comes up for you that you want me to touch on, let me know, because although we're moving on to other senses, revisiting is always part of the circular learning that we do in Rewild coaching. You know, that's observation, request, reflection, back to response, back to observation, etc. It's a circular. Horses learn circularly. So the coaching should be in a circular, fluid feel. And I'd love to hear from you, so please play with it. Now, just before I sign off, I know that you have all been really patient about the book. I've had several messages through here on comments, and quite a few messages privately, which really warms my heart. But the Principles of Rewilding Horsemanship from Nature book will be out in the next few days, and the moment it is, I will send direct message to anybody that's already requested that, and thank you for your support. So take care. And that was a little bit more than 10 minutes, but it's an important subject because we don't regard smell enough, in my opinion. So take care, have a great weekend. If you're anywhere near the heat wave, try and stay cool and relaxed, because that's what I'll be doing. Take care for now.